Welcome to Cataloging Queer Library Issues, a symposium honoring Walt Walker. We'll begin in a few minutes. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Taylor Parks. I will be your MC for today. And I would like to start by making a land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by noting that I'm speaking to you from unceded lands of the Tongva people, who are in the face of ongoing settler colonialism, continue to claim their place and act as steward of their ancestral lands as they have for thousands of years. The entire Los Angeles basin is unceded territory. It is both the ancestral and current home to large communities of indigenous peoples from the Greater Turtle Island, the Pacific Islands, and Latin America, including Zapotec and Mixtec people. And I'd like to specifically note that this land is home to a large community of Two-Spirit peoples who have long fought against the violence and erasure brought to them by colonizers. In doing this work of acknowledgement, especially for those of us who are settlers here, we strive to deepen our understandings of what our continued presence means as ongoing acts of violence, displacement, and dispossession. A first but insufficient step is to learn more, and I would strongly encourage folks who have not to read both Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz's An Indigenous Peoples, History of the United States, and Nick Estes' The History is Our Future, Standing Rock versus the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Long Tradition of Indigenous Resistance. I would like to pay respect to the traditions, histories, and continuous living cultures of these people and commit to accountability and respectful relations. Thank you. And right now, I would like to welcome Kristine Brancolini, Dean of the William H. Hannon Library. We'll welcome you and share a few words with us.
Welcome and good morning. It is my bittersweet pleasure to welcome you all to Cataloging Queer Library Issues, a symposium in honor of Walt Walker. In June 2020, we suddenly lost Walt, our beloved friend and colleague. Our hearts were broken. But today, we celebrate Walt's extraordinary life and professional legacy. We envisioned this symposium as a way to remember him, honor him, and bring together other librarians addressing issues of queer librarianship. My thanks to Peter Rolla and Taylor Parks for assembling the speakers for today's outstanding program, and to our outreach team, John Jackson, Carol Raby, and Rhonda Rosen for event management and logistics. We hope to make this symposium a regular event, providing a forum for current and future activists and scholars to report on their work and extend their influence. I hope that in the future, this can be a hybrid event, offering access to librarians worldwide, but with a face-to-face component for building relationships and research networks. Walt would be so happy to see all of you here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Brancolini. And now I'd like to welcome Cynthia Becht, Head of Archives and Special Collections at the William H. Hannon Library.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cynthia Becht. I'm here to tell you a little bit about Walt as a longtime professional colleague. So this reminiscence is more personal than complete. I can get there we go. I'm currently the head of Archives and Special Collections, but I began my librarian life as a cataloger. When I was hired by Loyola Marymount University in May 1995, I became its first ever professional rare book cataloger. I came to LMU from a large public university where I had worked with many special collections catalogers and copy catalogers, not to mention dozens, it felt like, other cataloging staff in a very large cataloging department. So as an early career librarian, moving over to LMU to become the only one of my kind in a position I was going to get to create was both really exciting and a little bit lonely. So I credit the two catalogers who were already here at LMU, working a floor above me, with helping me to feel welcome teaching me the quirks of the innovative catalog, and generally being around to answer any questions that I would have. But it was really a few months later, when Walt joined us on January 16, 1996, that I really felt the joy of working again with a cataloging ally, partner, and friend. With Walt, I found instant cataloging family. It may partly have been because Walt came to us from the Huntington Library, and we instantly bonded over knowing some of the same people and some very memorable stories that Walt had to share about Huntington life in general. It may be because we both had tabby cats at the time, his was orange, and that we loved Star Wars and both supported AIDS organizations, okay, at different levels. I volunteered now and then at AIDS Project Los Angeles events. Walt was a co-founder of the LA chapter of the grassroots activist organization ACT UP, AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. Walt was a great storyteller. I loved listening to his stories about his family, about his scuba diving, the sometimes scary activities he braved at a wonderful sounding annual men's retreat, and his years of volunteer work at the One National Gay and Lesbian Archives. Oh, and Walt was a major Tolkien fan. I have a very vivid memory of the moment we learned Peter Jackson was going to come out with a series of Lord of the Rings films. At one of our lunches, I confessed to Walt that I had been bored by Tolkien as a kid and could never get through the book. Walt looked at me for a long moment with his quirked eyebrow thing, and then proceeded to tell me a snippet of story, just one mini moment in the saga, and told it so rivetingly, he changed my entire view on the subject forever. Walt could tell a story. But it was really the way Walt loved to talk about cataloging as an articulate and expressive art, with all the terrible flaws in its expression, that hooked me and provided the focus for years of happy conversation and mutual gripings for us both. From the early Walt emails I have saved from, yes, the 1990s, I am reminded how much Walt gave of himself to LMU from day one. In 1996, as a new hire, he arranged for LMU to temporarily hire his Huntington copy catalogers, Betty Sauer and Norma Howard, to come as Saturday help to vanquish the backlog, and he came in on the weekend to supervise their work. Walt did away with backlogs as if they were his nemesis. And in 1999, Walt and I rejoiced together when the Library of Congress finally implemented form subdivisions and subject headings with subfield V. Walt and I had spent years over what an object was versus what an object was about. Much later, when the 655 genre headings field surfaced in our ILS, Walt and I shared a good smile over our early discussions. When I moved into my current position in 2007, Walt and I talked much less frequently about cataloging. We were both department heads by then, so some of that early fun I really missed. I am grateful, however, of getting to design a building with him and our leadership colleagues, and up until the pandemic, to work together with him in the same space in weekly management council meetings, with us usually sitting next to each other. Like everyone else, I celebrated Walt's determination to improve cataloging in order to improve the world we live in. He was quietly fierce and unwavering in his commitment. So I found in the university archives a pertinent copy of an internal library staff newsletter called Staff Stuff. I was the brand new editor of that newsletter when Walt was hired, and I shamelessly took advantage of our instant rapport to ask Walt to participate as the staff member to be highlighted in the first issue. He gamely agreed. So I wanted to share with you the answers Walt gave me in February 1996. I'm going to go slowly through the next couple of slides. Last year, we sought to add a meaningful artifact to our special collections in memory of Walt Walker. It was important to me that our acquisition reflect Walt's activism on behalf of the queer community. I also wanted an artifact that would be instantly relevant to LMU's curriculum. Our special collections has not had strong holdings in the area of queer studies, apart from a collection of rack cards within a larger AIDS awareness group of rack cards dating from the 1990s. These have been used every semester by a wonderful first-year seminar at LMU called Art in the Age of AIDS, taught by Professor Leon Liebers. That course also studies the artifact we have found, so I'm thrilled to know that Walt's artifact will be useful to students and to our instruction program right away. With this symposium, we present LMU's acquisition of the art poster, Ignorance Equals Fear, Silence Equals Death by Keith Haring, 1989, as our legacy artifact in honor of Walt "Cat" Walker. Keith Haring's cartoon graffiti style, inspired by street art, is so iconic that I probably don't need to say much about him. So very briefly, Haring was born in Pennsylvania in 1958, moving to New York, where he rose to artistic prominence in the 1970s and 1980s, the decades that suffered the rise of the AIDS pandemic. Many examples of Haring's work confronted various issues of social injustice, in which he used his immediately recognizable non-gendered figures to promote powerful messages of global community. Several protest movements used his evocative art to rally participants to their cause. This poster, which measures 43 by 24 inches, is an artwork Haring designed for ACT UP. So I felt this was very relevant for Walt. At the time he produced Ignorance Equals Fear, Keith Haring himself had already been diagnosed with AIDS. He passed away in early 1990, but his art and his messages live on, still instantly understandable and relevant. Along with the poster, we also acquired a 1989 ACT UP mailer that Keith Haring designed. The envelope itself is a work of art, and as such, the original owner and the art gallery from which we acquired the pieces never opened it. So the copy of the outreach letter that Keith Haring wrote on behalf of ACT UP's fundraising effort is still locked in a time capsule inside our mailer. Art curators have advised us to keep it that way, and luckily I've been provided with digital files of what the letter inside reads. With this acquisition, we are dedicated to expanding this new area of collecting for LMU's archives and special collections. Our library world and our users will continue to benefit from Walt's work and the inspiration he provided to his colleagues and friends. And I will forever be grateful to have worked with him for so many years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Not tearing up is the biggest challenge I think I'm going to face today. Thank you. I would like to briefly share our code of conduct. The William H. Hannon Library seeks to provide an environment in which diverse participants enjoy the company of colleagues in an environment of mutual respect. We are committed to providing a harassment-free environment for everyone. We recognize a shared responsibility to create and hold that environment for the benefit of all. Some behaviors are therefore specifically prohibited: bigoted harassment or intimidation, sexual harassment, stalking, threatening. And to report a grievance, contact the moderators using the Zoom chat module during the webinar, to privately contact one of the symposium's hosts, specifically John Jackson or Kara Wabi. And now I would like to welcome Michelle Walker and Patrick Nicely.
Hello, I'm Michelle Walker. I'm Walt's sister. I had the great fortune of traveling with my brother. He invited me to the cities where the ALA conference was held, like in Las Vegas, New Orleans, Chicago, San Francisco. And when I went there, he would invite me to the Roundtable social. So that's where I was able to meet many of you. On our other trips to Hawaii or New York, he loved to tell me about his projects at One and the Roundtable and the Homosaurus. He was so passionate about being a librarian. And he always talked about he was such a good librarian at that. So I just want to say thank you all to the participants. And thank you, John DeSantos, thank you, Chris, and your wonderful staff at LMU for putting this program together. I know my brother would be overcome with joy for this great honor you give him. Thank you.
Hello. I thought for a long time about what I could say about Walt, but the one thing I thought you all should know is that I think he was a born librarian. When I first met Walt back in 1981, he only reluctantly revealed to me that he had devised an intricate system for spending what little spare money he had at the time for his, at that time at least, his first love, which was music. He would assign point values to songs that he heard, and he only bought albums that had a minimum point value. And long before he went to library school, he started keeping an annotated list of books that he wanted to read or had read or owned or wanted to own. We have a lot of books that he hadn't read yet, but wanted to. And he had begun that collection a long, long time ago. And I'm hoping that some of those books that he acquired will end up at One. I wonder how many of you know that his master's thesis in library school was an annotated bibliography of all the queer literature in the UCLA libraries. He had grand plans for that sort of thing from the beginning. Walt loved being a librarian, and he took so much pride in his work at LMU, at One Archives, and most recently as part of the Homosaurus. I know that he will be missed greatly by all of you who knew him, and just as much as I miss him in my life. And I want to thank you so much for honoring him and remembering him in this way.